Opinion: India and China are moving forward, but can it be sustained? India's careful restoration of diplomatic ties with China is a master class in strategic calibration, though the sustainability of this rapprochement faces formidable challenges. By resuming people-to-people exchanges while maintaining robust military deployments along the line of actual control, New Delhi demonstrates a nuanced approach to managing great power competition without sacrificing national security interests. This calibrated normalization, anchored in military-to-military contacts, visa liberalization, and preparations for renewed special representatives talks, offers a template for navigating complex bilateral relations in an era of heightened geopolitical tensions. The durability of this diplomatic thaw, however, confronts a fundamental question: can goodwill survive China's continued belligerent actions and the shifting dynamics introduced by Trump's economic nationalism? The mechanics of India-China normalization since October 2024 reveal a diplomatic strategy designed to compartmentalize cooperation from competition. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar's landmark visit to China in July, the first since the deadly Galwan clash, established critical parameters for engagement. Meeting President Xi Jinping alongside fellow Shanghai Cooperation Organization SCO foreign ministers, Jaishankar stressed that both nations had made good progress in stabilizing relations over the preceding 9 months. This progress manifested in tangible measures. India's resumption of tourist visas for Chinese nationals on July 24 marked the first such initiative in 5 years, signaling a commitment to rebuilding connections severed by the 2020 border crisis. The announcement, made through the Indian Embassy's WeChat account, was strategically timed to coincide with the 34th Working Mechanism for Consultation and Coordination meeting, where both sides expressed satisfaction with the general prevalence of peace and tranquility in the border areas. Agreements on resuming direct flights, sharing hydrological data on transborder rivers, and facilitating the Kailash-Mansarovar Yatra reflect India's willingness to engage on non-sensitive issues while maintaining red lines on core security concerns. The introduction of Donald Trump's 25% tariffs on Indian goods has paradoxically accelerated India-China normalization by creating a common challenge to both nations' economic interests. Announced on July 30, these punitive measures specifically target India's energy and defense cooperation with Russia, while threatening additional penalties that could raise effective tariff rates to 35%. Trump's aggressive trade posture, described by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent as reflecting frustration with India's slow-rolling negotiations, has fundamentally altered the strategic calculus in New Delhi. While the tariffs are a sore point and an affront to US-India relations, the economic fallout for India is minimal. Tariffs threaten key export sectors, including automobiles, electronics, gems, and jewelry, with projected GDP impacts ranging from 0.2 to 0.5% if sustained. The fallout of this episode raises suspicion in New Delhi about moving forward with deep defense cooperation. It creates tactical incentives for India to explore alternative partnerships, including with China. The timing of these measures can be particularly damaging to India-US relations. Despite India being among the first nations to engage Washington in trade negotiations, and Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal's earlier optimism about concluding a consequential partnership, Trump's decision to impose the harshest Asian tariff regime on India revealed the transactional brutality underlying American alliance management. The president's subsequent characterization of India as having a dead economy further inflamed bilateral tensions. This deterioration in India-US relations creates space for China-India cooperation that would have been inconceivable under different circumstances. Both nations face pressure from Trump's economic nationalism, China through existing trade war measures, India through new tariff regimes. The India-China normalization faces its most severe test in China's unwavering support for Pakistan, particularly evident during the Operation Sindoor conflict. Beijing's actions during this crisis revealed the limits of bilateral improvement when core strategic interests collide. According to Defense Ministry assessments, China provided Pakistan with satellite coverage adjustments, air defense system reorganization, and real-time intelligence support during the 4-day conflict. The support was extended beyond traditional arms supplies to active operational assistance. Chinese hardware has been regularly discovered with militants, including Huawei satellite phones and GPS devices, demonstrating Beijing's technological enablement of Pakistan's proxy warfare capabilities. China's diplomatic protection of Pakistan has proven equally problematic. Beijing's refusal to condemn the Pahalgam attack at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization (SCO) meeting in Qingdao and its successful effort to exclude references to the resistance front from UN monitoring reports exposed the hollowness of its counter-terrorism rhetoric. Instead, China manipulated the joint statement to include Balochistan independence movements in what was a clear attempt to create false equivalencies between Pakistan's terrorism concerns and India's security operations. The institutional competition extends beyond South Asia to global governance structures. China's use of veto power to protect Pakistani interests in UN forums, manipulation of multilateral statements to serve Beijing's narrative, and creation of alternative institutional mechanisms all demonstrate systematic efforts to reshape the international order. These activities directly challenge India's preferred multilateral frameworks and create ongoing friction points. The economic dimensions of this nexus compound these security concerns. With $68 billion invested through the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor between 2005 and 2024, and 82% of Pakistan's military assets sourced from China, Beijing's commitment to Islamabad transcends transactional partnerships. These actions fundamentally undermine the trust-building measures India and China have carefully constructed. The CJW's assessment that anything currently available to China could be with Pakistan tomorrow reflects a strategic reality that no amount of diplomatic dialogue can easily overcome. The current India-China thaw operates against a backdrop of unresolved structural tensions that constrain the scope for meaningful cooperation. Despite the October 2024 disengagement agreement covering Dipsang and Demchok, over 100,000 troops remain deployed on both sides of the line of actual control. This massive military presence reflects mutual recognition that tactical de-escalation cannot address fundamental disagreements over territorial claims. China's broader pattern of economic coercion against India further undermines trust-building efforts. Recent restrictions on rare earth materials, delays in tunnel boring machine deliveries for the Mumbai-Ahmedabad bullet train project, and the recall of Chinese technicians from Foxconn facilities demonstrate Beijing's willingness to weaponize economic interdependence. These measures create what analysts term India's strategic vulnerability, a multifaceted dependence that Beijing can exploit for diplomatic leverage. The dam construction on the Yarlung-Tsangpo River exemplifies China's disregard for Indian concerns despite diplomatic engagement. Described by Arunachal Pradesh's chief minister as a ticking time bomb, this project threatens downstream water security for millions of Indians while proceeding without meaningful consultation. Such actions reveal the gap between China's diplomatic assurances and its operational behavior. India's response reflects growing strategic patience fatigue. The shift from viewing the border dispute as manageable to treating it as existential, evidenced by Defense Secretary Giridhar Aramane's characterization of China as a bully, signals hardening attitudes within the strategic establishment. This evolution suggests that tactical improvements cannot indefinitely substitute for addressing core disagreements. The $118.4 billion bilateral trade relationship between India and China creates both incentives for cooperation and vulnerabilities that can be exploited. India's $85.1 billion trade deficit reflects structural dependencies that complicate any comprehensive decoupling strategy. China's position as India's largest trading partner since 2122 means that sustained deterioration in relations would impose significant costs on both economies. For India, pursuing its target of 6.5% growth in 2025 and achieving third-largest economy status by 2027 requires access to Chinese components, manufacturing capabilities, and export markets. However, economic interdependence operates asymmetrically. China's ability to restrict critical inputs demonstrated through rare earth export controls and technology transfer limitations provides Beijing with escalatory options that India cannot easily reciprocate. India's response through the Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative seeks to reduce these dependencies while maintaining beneficial engagement. The selective approach, which maintains trade in non-sensitive sectors while building domestic capabilities in strategic industries, reflects a sophisticated understanding of economic statecraft. Yet the timeline for achieving meaningful self-reliance extends beyond current political cycles. creating interim vulnerabilities that China can exploit. The current India-China normalization is more crisis management rather than fundamental conflict resolution. Both nations have demonstrated the capacity to prevent tactical disagreements from escalating into confrontation while pursuing competing regional ambitions. The structural factors driving competition, territorial disputes, alliance commitments, and regional ambitions remain unresolved and potentially irreconcilable. China's Pakistan commitments, India's American partnerships, and both nations' economic development imperatives create ongoing friction points that tactical improvements cannot eliminate. The sustainability of current trends depends on both nations' ability to maintain strategic patience while managing domestic political pressures for more assertive policies. Swipe left for next video. By compartmentalizing cooperation from competition, maintaining multiple strategic partnerships, and preserving decision-making autonomy, New Delhi demonstrates that middle powers can navigate great power rivalry without sacrificing core interests. The answer may ultimately depend less on the goodwill between New Delhi and Beijing than on their respective calculations about the costs and benefits of continued competition versus accommodation. The test will come when one side concludes that its interests require fundamental changes to this equilibrium. If history has taught us anything, China is no stranger to ensuring that its interests are met, even if it comes at great cost to its partner nation. Consider the US-China rapprochement circa 1972. Latest blogs.